And hello, everyone. Welcome to our episode one, or first episode, whatever you want to call it, of our energy fact chats. I think that's kind of a working title right now. It just might be reduced to energy facts. With me, I'm one of the hosts, JP Warren. I'm the founder of Connection Crew, which entails Crew Club, which is E&P operator focused networking a group, as well as Kids Crew, which is promoting STEM activities, hobbies, education, and kind of getting children to understand a little bit more about energy sources, how it's converted to electricity, hydrocarbons, wind, solar, all that fun stuff. So that's kind of my background. I've been in this industry since 2005. And I guess before I go down that rabbit hole, I'm going to hand it over to my partner in crime, Mike Umbro. Mike, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good. How you doing, JP? I'm excited to launch this with you. This is going to be a lot of fun.
I think this is going to be a good time. I think so. For those of you that are tuning in for the first time, welcome and thank you. And this is just kind of something that I reside in Houston, Texas right now, and Mike is over in San Diego. Is that correct?
San Diego, born and raised.
There are
hard place to leave.
There are worse places to be right now than San Diego. But Mike and I met through the power of LinkedIn. Mike was putting out some great content about kind of the realities and kind of the challenges he's facing being a oil and gas producer out on the West Coast right now. And I've really loved his grounded message and kind of his level-headed, I guess, a communication of the message, man. I think what you're doing, I think it's great, not just for the industry, but also it just highlights energy, not just hydrocarbons or oil and gas, but it's also highlights all of the energy sources, which I think is extremely important right now as energy takes the limelight and all these, so many, obviously in this day and age, everything's politicized. And I don't like being political. I don't like your politics, mine are mine. I don't like getting involved. However, I feel like, Mike and I were talking, we're kind of in a crossroads right now, not just as an industry, but as a population, as a society when it comes to energy, because, we're seeing, poor energy policies in Europe lead to some really tough times for some people over there, and that's kind of challenging. And this is just kind of a conversation that I think we're gonna have a weekly conversation on kind of just kind of the realities of what's going on, what we're seeing, kind of what the headlines say, kind of the realities of what we're seeing. And that's the thing. I mean, before this, if you're not an energy professional or anything like that, that's fine. I didn't know anything about the energy industry until I joined in 2005.
Right.
When
Me either.
I didn't either. But that's the exciting part. But unfortunately, right now, I feel like a lot of people in the energy industry, or whether it's renewables, whether it's hydrocarbons, or where that is, it's very fact-based. It's very numbers. It's very this, very that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is a good opportunity, good platform to open it up to those that are maybe outside the industry that kind of want to learn a little bit more about what's going on. So
yeah. I think you're going to see people wanting to learn more too, because as we see in Europe with, a war, and this was going to unravel before this Russia invasion of Ukraine in Europe, but, kind of unraveling the energy policies out there. And then, now we're having it in California where you've got record high, utility rates, high gasoline prices. People want to know what's going on, but it's such a big industry and it's so complex that they don't know exactly where to look beyond what the newspaper is going to tell them or wherever they're getting their news, online or on the TV.
And I kind of feel like it's kind of coming to a point right now where it's like, people see these, the high energy costs. I mean, you're seeing, UK spend, their energy costs has doubled and all that stuff. A lot of times, I'm not saying, obviously on this, we're not making generalizations or anything like that, but I mean, well, it's going to come down. It's going to come down. The policy is going to make it come down, all that stuff. However, what you don't want to see, we are kind of seeing this. Europe's seeing this right now. It's where, you're okay. Well, they're high now, but somebody's going to fix that. The government's going to fix it. The government's going to fix that. However, you're seeing some policies and some decisions being made that kind of double down on energy policy that only hurts the consumer. And obviously we're going to get into the environment aspect too, because you're an environmentalist. I love the environment. I dig the environment. I want to leave it here for my daughter and my grandkids, should that happen eventually. Right. But I think right now it's important to kind of get this message out there, because the policies that are being made, the decisions are being made, it's kind of doubling down on poor decisions that only hurt the consumer. And it's so easy for, the people in power to say, oh, well, it's their fault, it's this industry's fault, it's that fault, it's this country's fault. In reality, it's all of our jobs to kind of learn more about the realities versus sitting back, kind of keep getting hit by these high energy costs and thinking, gee, what's going. So now it's time to kind of dial in and kind of to learn a little bit more, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think you touched on a number of things there. We've got the politics of all this. We've got energy, we've got the environment, and we've got economics, and they all need to work together. And you mentioned doubling down on policies, and it's what I'm seeing is double taxation and doubling down on penalties for certain types of energy systems or products or commodities. And this all sets up for something where the public really gets pissed off and angry, a la the Boston Tea Party, and when we're upset about taxes on tea back in the day.
Yeah.
And it's setting up to be the same thing, and it causes these massive displacements, whether it's population having to leave certain areas that are energy scarce, or whether it's just anger, frustration, and war that occurs because politicians are not pursuing policies that are sustainable, in my opinion. And that's why this is going to be so much fun, because we can kind of look at these topics and facts and try to parse out what's sustainable and what makes sense. And I think that's what the public is going to be clamoring for.
And the thing is, though, even whether you agree or not, and that's fine. Look, whether you agree or not, the point is to kind of provide some information, provide some sort of platform and framework where it's like, hey, whether I agree with that or I don't agree with that, I'm going to look into that a little bit more myself, versus relying on your source of information, whether it's the news or anything like that, to kind of get your information. So I think this is going to be crucial and important for that. And I am looking forward to this as well. I think it's going to be a good time. I think you and I have a good banter, and I'm excited for this.
Me too.
I really am.
Me too.
So real quick, so I kind of told a background. So my background is marketing. I graduated in marketing. I grew up in Connecticut. Background is in marketing. I went to Texas A&M. I got my master's in France, and then I couldn't find a job. I wanted to stay in France, but I couldn't find a job. And eventually I landed at a company called Noble Drilling in HR. Then I worked myself up to HSC, eventually kind of getting in operations, then going to Saudi for a year and come back to the States, getting into sales. And then probably about a year ago, I started my own networking company, bringing people together. So that's kind of my background in a nutshell. I have a podcast, Energy Crew podcast. It's not just about energy. It's about a lot of different things in the local community, the international community, and all that stuff. So check that out if you get a chance. And Mike, why don't you kind of give us a little background? Because again, this is people's first time maybe seeing this and all that stuff. So I kind of want to set people up to kind of what to expect in our conversations moving forward.
Yeah. So I'm born and raised in San Diego. I went to undergrad at Pepperdine, studied economics there, started a career in finance, really with no ties to the energy industry whatsoever. Fell into some early jobs partnering upstream exploration and production management teams with private equity, trying to acquire producing oil and gas assets around the country. Did that and really became an investment banker by trade in the early part of my career.
Did that come with a vest?
Yeah, no, I never wore a vest until last year. I was
that might be an East Coast thing.
Well, I accidentally took my buddy's vest from this golf tournament. So now every free giveaway, every time I wore it this morning, I take a selfie of it. I'm like, this is perfect vest weather. He's still upset about it. But no, traditionally I'm not a vest wearer, but I went from, kind of a banking background and thought, well, I don't want to be this intermediary finance piece. I want to operate. So went back and studied and got my master's of energy business at University of Tulsa from 14 to 16, kind of one of the more recent downturns that we all experience. Right. So good time to go back, kind of learn how I would function as an operator. Started a company in 2018 operating an upstream oil and gas asset in West Kern County, about an hour and a half west of Bakersfield proper. And then I went back, quickly after starting that company. I said, wow, I really want to study the environment. And so I went back and studied and did a master's of environmental management through the Duke University Nicholas School of the Environment.
So wait, so why did you? Okay, so after you got your petroleum engineering, or not petroleum, or energy
business, it was like an MBA but for energy. Yeah.
So what? I guess after that, I mean, that's obviously your second round of school, and after some time off from school, and not many people go back for a third. What kind of prompted the environmental aspect of your discipline, of your studies, if you will?
Yeah, no, it's a perfect question because it leads into what we're doing here with Energy Facts. And I wanted to know, what are the environmentalists, quote unquote, like you said, we all care about the environment. We all want clean air, water,
yes,
you name it. But what is the presentation of facts in the environmental sphere is basically what I wanted to know. And number two, I wanted to bring every available resource I could on the environmental side to our operations in West Kern County, because California is, the self-proclaimed leader of the environmental, progress movement. Governor Newsom will say it, our politicians will say it. We're on the leading edge of all these policies, whether we like it or not. And what I wanted to do was really align with that spirit. I don't want to constantly be fighting to produce energy. I don't want to be fighting my government to have the social license to operate. I want to say, okay, how do we protect sensitive species? How do we protect sensitive habitat? How do we do all of this while also developing a natural resource that we all need and that we all consume every single day? And so that's why I went back and did that program, when it's like, wow, do you really need to go back to school again? No, but it's just, I don't want to work. I want to know, I don't want to work. I want to give all my money away to these universities and be broke forever. But really it's about uncovering the facts, because you don't get the facts consuming media. You just don't. No. You have to consume the data, and in an unbiased way. And it's still difficult to find unbiased data in certain respects through academic studies, because you can skew a study based on your model inputs, based on confirmation bias that you go into a study with, and predetermined outcomes and all that. So it was really just a way for me to hone in on my methodology, really, on how to sift through energy, environment, and economics and put it all together.
And so what you're going to get out there, those that are tuning in right now, number one, you're going to get a lot of, you're going to get a 30,000 foot view of what's going on. That's going to be from my perspective. Obviously I am not the smartest person on the screen right now. So you're going to be getting real questions that a lot of times that I don't understand, but I think it's going to be a good mix of general questions and specific questions, what's going on right now. But also, but one of the things that kind of from discussions with Mike, and Mike obviously can speak to this more. Obviously I keep on saying obviously because it's our first one. I'm kind of nervous what to say, so just deal with it. Obviously,
yeah.
One of the things that there's several things that kind of prompted this, and it's not just you trying to operate or produce oils. There's been a lot of roadblocks for producers out there. It's been a lot of, but it's not so much that. It's also, again, I try not to be political. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. It's if you're I just don't dig politicians. So don't take this the wrong way. Whatever side of the line you are on. But there's also something you've been faced with too. It's a lot of hypocrisy. There seems to be and you're noticing this too. There's a lot of things that you're seeing for the good of the environment. That may be looked at that way on a public perception platform, like, oh, this is going to be good for the environment. We phase this out. If we do this, if we import this, import that, which actually has a reverse effect on the environment that you're seeing. And that's kind of one of those things where it's like, and obviously we're going to talk about your project here in a little bit. And we're going to try to keep these about 30 minutes or less so that we can kind of consume them quickly. But one of the things that you're seeing is, I guess, dealing not just the obstacles and the hurdles that you're trying to do to I guess, conduct business and take care of your family and kind of provide a reliable energy to those around you, but you're seeing you are on the front lines of this speaking out of both sides of the mouth. Hey, we want to do this, we might want to do this, but you actually got to the point where you got on boats and you went out to where the tankers are sitting there, and you're seeing what it does to the marine life. You're so it's not just, oh, it's difficult because we're we're the state that's leading the environmental charge. It's also, it's frustrating for you because you're seeing what it's doing to the environment. So I guess through all of this, the past several years of, I guess, shouting into the void, you decided to kind of get organized. And kind of, let's talk about kind of what you're doing on the West Coast to kind of get organized and kind of communicate some energy facts. And by the way, I do like how when you said energy facts, you didn't say chat at the end. So I feel that's the way it's moving. And I'm fine with that. It's the first one. But I know I got the energy facts chats down for the first episode. So next one, whatever.
I like energy.
Whatever. Don't give me that.
I think both work. I think it's good. It was just for the purpose of being, not tongue tied.
So tell me what's going. So tell me kind of provide a little I guess circumstantial kind of situational kind of environment, what you've been dealing with, and kind of what you are doing currently right now on the West Coast.
Right. So we started our project in 2018, which in 2018, Governor Newsom was not governor. So we had a different regime in place, and a Sacramento that actually kind of allowed projects to proceed and get permitted, and it wasn't totally just shut everything down. So the first domino that kind of tipped me to really dig into this was realizing the power of a single election cycle. Like one election cycle can change everything. And I think that could happen. We see it with the amount of money that's being spent with the bipartisan infrastructure bill that was passed, and with the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed. You see a tremendous amount of money going into certain technologies and certain energy systems. And so that's one thing that really started to kind of pique my interest, is wow, things can turn on one election. Number two, I realized that what the industry was doing internally in our own bubble, let's call it just the oil and gas industry for a minute here, what we're doing in our own little world typically stays within our own little world. Yep. So even if there's good things going on, or if there's bad things going on, we don't really like to talk about it. And I think that needs to change. We're in this era where social media is big, you doing podcasts and networking events, and people want to see and touch and feel, and they want to know who is operating in their community. They want to know who's there. And it's not just enough to put up a fence and pretend like, we don't belong in the community. So there's that. And then on top of that, and kind of merging the politics and what's happening with the industry together, then you've got, well, how do people get their information? Well, they typically get it from the LA Times, the San Diego Union Tribune, the San Francisco Chronicle for people on the West Coast in California. And those writers and those publications tend to be leaning towards one political bent, which is left. And I agree with you. We don't want to talk politics, but you can't ignore it. So what happens is that megaphone really only picks up the vibes that the politicians want. They're pushing, they float, aggressive ideas out there, such as shutting down production, and then that just gets amplified through these.
And then also the language that people are using. I mean, I saw recently on LA Times a day or two ago that they're ending environmental racism. Right. And to me, that's I've never heard of that. That's pretty powerful, and that definitely caught my attention.
Right. And I hadn't heard of that until I went back to study the environment in 2019. And it's been a thing for a long time. And, there are certain aspects and elements, redlining and putting people in certain community zoning areas that are less desirable than others, that was wrong and that shouldn't happen. But then the flip side of that, you could say, well, the oil fields in the LA basin were there since the turn of the 20th century. They've been there for 120 years.
I mean, you look at old pictures of derricks.
It's nothing but derricks. And so the housing came after the fields were developed. So and that's a spin factor, right? Someone can write an article in the LA Times saying, oh, these oil companies just start drilling in the backyards of these disadvantaged communities and they spew all these toxins and this and that and the other. And it's like, well, wait a minute. No, they didn't go say, hey, there's a poor community over there, let's go set up shop.
Yeah.
But that's how these articles can be presented. And right or wrong, I believe that's wrong. It's used to push policy moves and big policy moves,
public perception, policy moves. Yes,
and it impacts what a lot of the lay people don't understand, and why the industry gets so aggravated with these measures is it comes down to property rights, and it comes down to your right to have a lease, to have minerals leased, to produce those minerals. And so it's all kind of setting up for constitutional takings and big sweeping lawsuits that are going to start flying around, more frequently. And so when you see all this kind of come together, that's where we really wanted to come together as an industry and a community in Kern County to study, the energy and the science behind all of this through the data.
So pretty much, let's kind of get back to what you're doing. We got about, for our first one, we got about 8 minutes and 30 seconds left, and I do want to keep a schedule to kind of have respect to our listeners out there. So
right.
So pretty much what you're doing, you're forming a group of industry, non-industry people. And what is the objective of this? First off, what is it called?
So we're calling it Californians for Energy and Science.
Okay.
501c3.
Okay.
That we're going to meet monthly as members, and it's open to anybody that wants to be a part of this community. And what we're going to talk about is the science, the data, what's happening with our energy systems, oil and gas, electricity markets, refinery profits, the whole spectrum. But we're really going to focus on what development is good for California and what development, maybe not so good for California, and doing that through the lens of just the data and the science, and then working together with universities and folks that are interested in reporting on this data, and then putting that out to the public. And so it's really just kind of a grassroots effort to organize producers, economists, mathematicians, whoever wants to be involved to get to the best sources and uses of our energy as a state and as a community.
So is this avenue that you're taking to kind of get the universities and kind of get these third party groups involved? Is that for a reason, or are you doing that to kind of keep that, I guess, not subjective, the objectivity of everything? I mean,
Yeah, I think it needs to be both. I think we can study it together. We can have, some sort of social media channels where we can publish data we're finding. But when it comes to, written reporting and scientific papers, peer-reviewed papers, that's nice to have done through a third party and have kind of hands off. Like
it kind of adds a little validity to it.
Right. And it's really taking a page out of the playbook of how some of these policies are being written and implemented in Sacramento. They will go and engage, the UC Berkeley Center for Law and the Environment to go study the legal pathway to phase out oil and gas production in California. Well, that's a great idea. And I've read that report, and every one of the recommendations is being rolled out as a policy in Sacramento these days. So we should be doing the same thing. We should be saying, what are the legal pathways to a sustainable oil and gas industry in California? Because love it or hate it, 30% of California's oil and gas is produced in the state. So it's really, we're really outsourcing our environmental stewardship to other countries.
Where does to other countries that operate with the same, I guess, regulations that the U.S. has?
Well, that's the idea, right? But you mentioned, spending a year in Saudi, Iraq, the Ecuadorian Amazon, Venezuela. We're hearing a lot about all of these countries, and it's one of those things where, yes, we want to look at the California Environmental Quality Act. CEQA is our kind of flagship environmental laws here, as well as the Global Warming Solutions Act of 2006, AB 32, and look at the letters of these landmark pieces of legislation and compare sources and uses of our energy based on the law. And I think the hypothesis for our group coming together is that, you know, the law is really going to support local production more than it supports unchecked foreign barrels. And so that's the goal, is to really study the other side of the coin, because what we see being studied right now is almost exclusively geared to shut down local industry, shut down local jobs and local economics, which hurt the very disadvantaged communities we're trying to save and we're trying to help.
And then also, I mean, because, I mean, I guess the whole background on this, because, you know, it's for the environment, it's for this, it's for that. When you are the whole NIMBY mentality, the not in my backyard mentality, when it is sourced from of foreign sources, number one, you're relying on them. Okay. And I, bringing in the, you know, the Russia-Ukraine conflict and in actually the entire EU situation, energy situation right now, you're seeing kind of the potential outcome of something like that occurring. But also it's they don't have the environmental regulations, or they don't have the policies and procedures that the US has, and which actually has extremely high policies and environmental procedures out there. So it's also detrimental to the environment. So to wrap things up, and obviously I'm looking forward to having kind of getting more in the weeds, but I think we needed to set everything up right now. So you just had y'all's first meeting last month in November, correct? Right, November 9th or 8th, and then you have your next you have your next one coming up in December 10th or 11th,
December 14th, lunch.
December 4th. I'm not good at math, but I was close. So yeah, so I think this is going to be exciting stuff. So December 14th is coming up, and we'll put that information on how you kind of reach out and kind of get involved with myself or Mike, and kind of go from there. Where else you want to? And again, obviously, I am in the oil and gas industry, but that being said, I'm in the energy industry. I appreciate and love all sources of energy, and I think we need it all as the global demand of energy increases and all that stuff. So this isn't a pro this, anti that platform. This is I heard energy maximist or something like that. Like, we love it all. We dig it all, but at the same time, we also want to provide some actual data and actual conversations and facts out there to people that may not be in the energy industry, or kind of or just get their information from one of the news channels that, you're right, is swayed.
Right. And that getting back to your question of the goal is really to give people unbiased information, unfiltered in some respects, but then distilled through a university or, you know, a really reputable place of research. And then ultimately to get our policy makers on board with the idea that we need to study all sources and uses of our energy, not just what's produced here locally. We need to look at the whole system, and we need to trace it all the way back, the entirety of the supply chain, back to, you know, where a barrel of crude came from, where an electron came from, and how clean or how dirty is that source, and compare it to our sources and uses, and really allow the public to make decisions and allow the policymakers to make decisions that are holistic, that include everything, and that remove the bias and remove the emotion from what we think we want or what we think is good for people. Let's get to what actually is the best.
So I guess that's a great way to put it. The way that I put it is that I think this is gonna be a great platform to kind of there's energy expectations and energy realities, and there's a huge gap right now between those. And so hopefully this is a platform for people to kind of get here, and we can kind of reduce that gap to kind of show the energies, realities, and expectations on kind of where we want to go as a civilization in the future.
Yes.
So man, I'm looking
the energy fact bridge.
The bridge.
The bridge.
The energy. Yes. So you can have a chat from these energy facts chats. So yes. I tell you what. So I appreciate this. Why don't you send us out if you don't mind, Mike? I'm gonna. Do you have anything to say to
I would, you know, Energy Facts Chats #1 was a huge success. I'm excited for people to learn how we can all come together and communicate, and it'll be exciting to run this process together. And I'm down to do it every week. Let's do it every week, and let's have fun.
Yeah, let's have some fun. If you enjoy this, be sure to share it, and be sure to in tune. We're moving forward. We might take one or two hot topics of the week, or we might just kind of dive into kind of what's going on with the California Environmental Energy Science Coalition, whatever it's called.
Yeah, you got it. Californians for Energy and Science.
Hey, look at that! Look at that, yeah. From the hip. So So we're not sure how this is going to evolve moving forward, but we're obviously open for feedback. But I think moving forward, we're just going to start having some conversations, whether it's current events, what's going on, whether it's hot topics, what's happening, or whether it's kind of the geopolitical look of things when it comes to domestic energy opportunities and challenges. So, Mike, I want to thank you for your time. I look forward to chatting you with the next week. Thank you for everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you then. And reach out to us if you want to get in touch and learn more.
Absolutely.